Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Um, this is really a profound day for many reasons. We will get to the Kavanaugh testimony and confirmation and debacle and chaos in a moment. We'll get to the Democratic Party's yet again another failed propaganda attempt. Now, this is Dr. Ford could be absolutely telling the truth. I have no idea. I have no idea if Kavanaugh is guilty of what she's stating or he's completely innocent, whether it happened or didn't happen. But I can tell you that Democrats, if they cared, would focus on Keith Ellison or Eric Schneiderman or all the other wonderful examples of Democrats treating women wonderfully. Who knows if Keith Ellison, if his accuser is telling the truth? We don't know, but she has medical records. She has actual medical records. So you have a situation here where it's a big problem, a huge problem, where nowadays an accusation can lead to people losing their job, people perhaps not becoming Supreme Court. I do believe that he'll get confirmed because I didn't hear anything today that was the smoking gun that was needed. But that's yet to be determined. I do think, though, that it's pretty overt. Even the Democrats know that this is a ploy. I mean, they tried every single thing. And there's going to be media outrage, of course, and people are going to say, oh, this is so horrible for Republicans. It's worse for Democrats. It's worse, a lot worse for Democrats. We'll get to that in a second or a little while. But Kavanaugh will be testifying later today. And we have a situation with Rod Rosenstein where Trump postpones meeting with Rosenstein until next week. President Trump postponed a scheduled meeting with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein on Thursday. Trump and Rosenstein are expected to discuss the Deputy Attorney General's future at the Justice Department. My preference would be to keep him, Trump said Wednesday. I would certainly prefer not to fire him. President Trump has absolutely been playing the game better than anyone ever. Throughout his presidency, this is the most diplomatic he's been. He stated yesterday he could change his mind on Kavanaugh. I don't believe that. He stated yesterday that I would certainly prefer not to fire Rosenstein. I don't believe that. He has learned to be diplomatic, at least more so than ever. And that is also taking media for a loop. They kind of don't know what to make when he is diplomatic or when he's quote unquote presidential. So that's really interesting to watch. Because yesterday he was like, yeah, I can change my mind. I got to hear the testimony. And then the media is like, what do we do? How do we spin this? How do we spin this? To my super chat, thank you so very much. You give me every incentive to rock these live streams. But let's continue. President Donald Trump postponed a scheduled meeting with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein on Thursday in order not to distract from congressional hearings for a Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Quote, the president spoke with Rod Rosenstein a few minutes ago and they plan to meet next week. This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They do not want to do anything to interfere with the hearings. The White House said earlier this week that the purpose of Trump and Rosenstein's meeting would be to discuss the Deputy Attorney General's future at the Justice Department amid conflicting reports Monday that Rosenstein was either planning to resign or expecting to be fired. By midweek, however, Trump appeared to have moved away from the idea of firing Rosenstein. My preference would be to keep him. I would certainly prefer not firing him. I am telling you, Republicans are going to keep control of the House. and keep control of the Senate. I advise President Trump, although I would be happy if he fired him next week, I think that he should have fired him a while ago, but I think that I would say wait until the midterms. Either way, it's not going to affect Republicans. Republicans will win. Regardless of what takes place, Republicans will win. Democrats, they really think that they've won with this Kavanaugh hearing. And there are a lot of people who, even conservative media, say, oh my God, Democrats are going to lose. They've won. I don't see this. I don't see this at all. This is horrible, horrible, horrible for Democrats. This really, really hurts the MeToo movement. This really hurts the MeToo movement because you have a situation where these allegations, you can say that whether or not it happened or not, the timing and the duplicity, the disingenuous behavior of Democrats, the disingenuous, they don't care. You have Eric Schneiderman and Bill Clinton. And I mean, Keith Ellison, there is an accuser. There's no congressional committee. There's nothing. There's nothing. So this is not good. It's not good for Democrats. It's not good. It's not going to do well. The midterms are generally older voters above the age of 45. I think that, what was it? I wrote it. I found one of the links to the polling sites. So I'll show you right now. According to 2015 American Community Survey estimates, it's something like 73% or no, 50. Like around 60% of voters in the midterms are over 45, something like that. I'm trying to look at they're gonna see this differently from the millennial journalist at the Washington Post or BuzzFeed. They're gonna look at the timing and they're gonna say, okay, well, you waited. And older people make up a majority of midterm voters. If older people make up the majority of midterm voters, you're not looking at this public relations coup. You're not looking at a public relations victory for the Democratic Party. So I don't see where for the Democrats to actually gain from this, they would have had to end the congressional hearing, the Kavanaugh hearings a day before November 6, 2018, like literally a day before. Then it possibly could have, I don't know, bumped some, but Kavanaugh's going to get confirmed. This is not Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. And looking back on that, I see that differently now. Just like somewhat differently. Like I do, like Medicare for all. Like I've left the cult. There's a difference between, there are women who are truly, truly experienced like hell on earth, the most barbaric, horrible, horrible treatment by men who are really criminals, who are really predators. You're talking Bill Clinton. You're talking manipulative behavior. A lot of this is manipulative, and then it's also obviously physical abuse. Women get black eyes, and there's bruises and cuts, and they're in terms of, horrible, assault. There's evidence. There's police reports. Sometimes there aren't. Yes, I get that. But at least they know where they were. This is doing a disservice to everyone who has truly suffered. If your frequent flyer miles correlate to United Airlines or American Airlines stock, I'm going to have a hard time really shedding a tear. I do believe most women. I do. I think most women, when they say something happened, it's true. I do. Like I said, I think that sometimes people are manipulated, and sometimes there's a situation where it's overtly, like who's paying for the lawyers? Who's paying for the airfare? Who's paying for the polygraph? Oh, the lawyers say, well, we're paying for the polygraph. Well, who's paying for the lawyers? So, I mean, this is you. If you criminalize juvenile sophomoric behavior, if you criminalize that, nobody in society is safe, and the actual real predators get away with everything, because then they can say, "Oh, well, I was just come on, you're going to believe this person." There are people who should be the majority of women who come out, or men. I was, people say, if people say, oh, I was, this or that, this happened to me. Yeah, they deserve the benefit of the doubt, and very likely they have no benefit in lying. But when you time everything the last second, I'm sorry. And then you don't make any sense. Thank you, Sixth Sense soldiers. Thank you. Well, you know what the thing is, and I'll tell you how my vantage point changed. I went, well, first of all, I can just show you the Second Amendment. Here's my vantage point from the Second Amendment. I grew up, how did I change from writing? This is just kind of a parallel transformation regarding a lot of things. How did I change from writing about gun control to owning a number of firearms in a nice safe that I have access to within seconds? And by the way, I bought some really cool cases to transport them. Very affordable too. At the sporting goods store, local sporting goods store. Very affordable. Anyway, because a lot of times the cases are way too expensive. But these are California compliant, so you could lock them up in your trunk. Horace, the Federalist is a great article. 10 red flags about sexual assault. Can't post link here. So thank you, Horace. Thank you. Here's my one example of transformation. People say, "Oh, well, how come you changed so well?" The NRA retweeted my Daily Caller article, and the Gun Owners of America, and I'm members of both, retweeted an article about me on guns.com, and Gun Owners of America was really cool. They actually thanked me on Twitter. I was like, thank you, my goodness. And the NRA was really cool too. They were really complimentary about my writing. But I grew up, I'm from Los Angeles. And when we were younger in the 80s, my friends would have BB guns. And I remember a couple of my friends would put up model airplanes, and we'd shoot the model airplanes with BB guns. And I remember we'd have to just pump the air guns and just put the BBs in, and we just grew up with that, and I didn't think anything of it. And then I just moved away from anything to do with firearms until I think I went to a shooting range to get lessons. This was 20 years ago. And then it took 10 years, and then I went clay shooting. It was a 10-year span. And then as I was the past couple of years, Matt DeRozit, enough of this crap, get to R getting well, next week, he probably won't I hope he does, but I don't. Anyway, cut a long story short, you go to the range, you say, hey, I have an itch to go, and then you become addicted to it. Then you go a lot. Then you start a channel. Then you buy a bunch of firearms. Then you enjoy. And then you know you're protected. You're protecting your family. It's important. It's important. You know that I'm not I'm a public figure, but I'm not. Nobody knows who I am. But there are people who do. So you're always safe. Especially if you're safer if you have protection in your home. And this is the only country that allows that. So then your mindset changes and then you enjoy it. And it's a catharsis. That's what I'm trying to say. Really quickly, you become a more intelligent, more worldly, less ignorant individual when you actually appreciate something and you actually appreciate a right that you're that is actually a natural right. Then you start to question the left a lot more. Then you start to say, hey, what are they doing to the MeToo movement? Then you start to realize, hey, they are, not only did they cheat Bernie Sanders, that's not an isolated incident. What they've done is like mind control. They are trying to make everything fit their own propaganda. And in doing so, they continually lose. In doing so, they continually lose. That's the important, with Rosenstein, they're going to lose on that also. With Rosenstein, he's going to eventually get fired. Between you and me, I hope he gets fired after the midterms. I hope he gets fired after the midterms because it would just be sweet poetic justice. Ebenezer Adams, will you be my beach friend? Ebenezer Adams. Ebenezer Adams, thank you. And it's, you just see this is, you see what is taking place in the double standard. See, it's not a matter of Kavanaugh or Dr. Ford telling the truth. It's not, she could be telling the truth, okay? Or it could be an event that she viewed in a manner that wasn't the case. It's 37 years ago. I mean, it was a moment in time where it's shrouded in such mystery that there's no way for law enforcement to do anything. So they say, well, it's not the FBI. They keep on relying on the FBI. It is an overt stalling tactic. They're not fooling anyone. Like, well, why don't we have an FBI investigation? You had 6 background checks. What are they going to do? Go back in time to a place that doesn't exist? We don't even know where the house is. We don't know where the house is, very likely, because then you would have to have people, the owners of the house, corroborate. Then you'd have to have the family. I mean, it's very sly. It could be an example of something very sly. How do you not know where something took place? That's bizarre. There's like a 10, 20, I can go ahead. I'm not going to go ahead. I'm going to abide by YouTube policies. But there are 30 different things you could say that doesn't make any sense. And those 30 questions or 40 questions, the majority of people who've experienced the most barbaric, horrible assault by men who are women, they know the answers to that. You are dumbing down as a Democrat. You're dumbing down and you're mocking the experiences of people who did suffer. She said oh, well, I don't travel by plane, but you've traveled like 10 times. You've gone to different vacations. You didn't go to French Polynesia by car. You go to conferences. I mean, everything was just so like everything. They hide behind. Ebenezer Adams, play much poker. Yeah. Yep. Ebenezer Adams. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'll say this, like, I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to be as fair as possible. By the way, you like my Dwight D. Eisenhower? Just got it today. If you go ahead and you say that I'm going to give, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Okay, let's say I truly believe that Dr. Ford is telling the truth. Well, then the question is, well, can you prove this? If you cannot prove the claim, thank you, Eric, H526. Yeah, I like it. Thank you, Eric. So if you cannot prove the claim, then you cannot stop the proceedings. That's the issue. So, I mean, Rosenstein is pretty much, getting back to Rosenstein, he's pretty much, his political career is done. So, and I'm telling you, everything is going to fall into place. Eventually, Hillary Clinton will get charged with a crime. Pick a crime, any crime. It all leads to her. And I'm telling you, the House will remain Republican. Be here on November 6, 2018. The House will remain Republican. Democrats are almost at like 6.9 now. If they're under 7, it's curtains for Democrats. It's game over. It is game over. And the polls, I'll get back to Rosenstein in a second, but the polls keep on tightening because Democrats only have the media. They don't have policies. They have hatred and the media, and that's it. Hatred of Trump and the media. They don't have policies that actually bolster. They don't have accomplishments, achievements. Trump has a great economy. There's peace between North and South Korea. Okay, he's going after corrupt FBI agents. Trump supporters, people talk about his base. Trump doesn't have a base. He has millions and millions and millions of Americans who will vote for him during midterms and who will vote for him during the election. It's not necessarily a base. Like, yes, he has hardcore Trump voters. Yes, that could be called a base. But see, the media has already tarnished. They call them deplorables, dregs of society. It didn't work last time. Trump supporters are great people. And I stated that, it's the Trump supporters who defended me on my channel when anti-Semitic people were trying to attack me. Trump voters. The left, though, can't fathom that the same people who defeated Hillary Clinton are also good people. They have to paint everybody as horrible and then them as virtuous. But the notion that there's like just a certain type of person who's going to vote for Trump, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. There are people who disagree with me on a whole bunch of issues on the left and the right who are voting for Trump. There are all types of people voting for Trump, all types of, and there's not just, it's not a Trump support. It's not just one demographic or one type of human being. My name is Love. Hello. And that's, I have never, the only time I didn't vote Democrat in my life was Jill Stein. And now I'm never going to vote Democrat again. I mean, I can't imagine ever voting Democrat again. They would have to have like Tulsi Gabbard, and then it would have to be somebody other than Trump. And I don't think that they'll never let Tulsi Gabbard truly win up until, maybe the end of Trump's second term, and they realize they have to go ahead and change. But the thing with Rosenstein is going to, he's going to get fired. He's going to get fired. And when he does, the media will then have another meltdown, which, by the way, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Trump should just fire Rosenstein next week. That would take, could you imagine, like, Kavanaugh gets confirmed, then he fires Rosenstein, and the media won't know, like, suddenly they won't care that much about the Ford issue, and then oh my God, it'll be about Rosenstein and Mueller. They're bouncing. They only have outrage. Democrats only have outrage. That's all they have. That's all they have is outrage. They don't have anything else. They don't have anything else. Do they have legislation? No. Are they pushing any legislation? No. Do they have any big projects they're pushing? Peace between North and South Korea, a wall, a border wall. Now, by the way, Trump was like, hey, fund my border wall. We'll give Dreamers citizenship. That's a good thing. Democrats are like, no. So eventually he's going to get his border wall. They might not get. And I have friends who are Dreamers, and I want them, who are part of the DACA program, and I want them to become citizens. But see, that's the thing. When you're conservative, when you are a Trump supporter, you can agree with a lot of conservative things, and then also agree with some progressive or liberal things. Trump people don't descend upon you. The left is a giant cult. They say that the right is a cult. The left is a cult. The left is a cult. When Sarah Silverman says in one of her shows, she says, well, you should go ahead and watch some MSNBC and CNN. Those are your vegetables. You can't have Fox News as your dessert. No, it's the opposite, actually. CNN and MSNBC are the propaganda, high in sucrose, sugar desserts that give you diabetes of the brain through just immense, never-ending propaganda. Trump's going to get impeached. Trump worked with Russia. Oh my God, Stormy Daniels. Notice how Avenatti is no longer talking about Stormy Daniels. Well, what happened to Stormy Daniels? What happened to the National Enquirer? What happened to Michael Cohen? What happened to Manafort? These are all fabricated. There's no there. There actually was there with Clinton, but there's no there with these dumb scandals. Brian Murphy, that definitely, in a way, happened to me. Brandon Wolf, Lindsey Graham is right. Nothing new shown or backed. Case showing Democrats hit job build. Dangerous to allow destroy anyone. Exactly. Vote. Yeah. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to vote. Nothing is going to change. And then you have these people like on Fox, like Chris Wallace. I can't stand the guy. This is really bad for Republicans. Really? Well, what? How could... It's not bad, first of all, but obviously it's uncomfortable. It's, it's bad, but this is something that could destroy any human being's life. You can't go back in time and say, well, we're going to investigate a moment, a split second. What they're doing is almost like this Kafka-esque. You're now getting into like the existential world. You're now getting into some kind of alternate reality where you're going to litigate moments in time that don't lead to even a scratch, that don't lead to any physical harm, thank God. Certainly no sexual harm, thank God. It was a moment of, nobody condones traumatic moments, nobody. But you cannot say it's like Harvey Weinstein. You cannot say Cory Booker, I was listening to him today, and it was like nauseating. It was absolutely nauseating because he's not bringing up Keith Ellison. And Keith Ellison is the DNC co-chair. And not one person has brought up Keith Ellison. And then the other day I see Keith Ellison, I welcome the FBI to investigate. Well, that's the thing. It's kind of difficult to say I welcome the FBI to investigate when you perhaps have agents that are loyal to the Democratic Party, like Strzok and Page and Comey and McCabe and Kleinsmith and Moyer and all these FBI agents. You hide behind the FBI. Remember, the FBI and the CIA, they're all going to gravitate towards power eventually. Democrats are playing a game where their two biggest allies are really frenemies. Media and the intelligence agencies gravitate towards power. They gravitate toward, and they will eventually completely gravitate towards Trump. You're going to see eventually a lot more favorable coverage of Trump. You're going to see eventually the intelligence community completely flip on Democrats. It is now, by the way, the generic congressional poll. And if I'm going like, you know me, if I go all over the place, it's because there's how do you process this craziness, knowing that Democrats are shooting themselves in the foot, constantly stabbing their own back, constantly throwing a boomerang at Trump and having it hit them in the head, and then wondering, what happened. Democrats throw a boomerang at Trump, it hits them in the head, and then they blame Trump voters for the boomerang. It's like, no, you did this to yourself. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it went from 8.8 something like that to now 7.2. The generic, again, these polls are meaningless, but they're kind of an indicator, a snapshot, perhaps. But it always tightens up. But when you look at the polls, Democrats have to be at 8 or 9 or 10. If they're below 7, if they're below 8, it's curtains for them. But if they're below 7, if they're below 6, and if they're below 5, if they're below 5, Republicans could actually gain seats. Now, I don't think that's likely, but I'm saying Republicans could actually gain seats. All right. Now we're going to be here November 6, 2018. And I'm telling you categorically, Republicans will keep control of the House and keep control of the Senate, gain seats in the Senate. And when that happens, I'll be vindicated. You'll be vindicated. And it'll be just yes, and yet another. Thank you, Kim. Yet another example of Democrats getting what they deserve. But the polls and the media and outrage are the only thing Democrats have. And they have to keep it. It goes up to 10. It's like Spinal Tap. Okay? They have to keep it at 12 or 11. They have to go ahead and go overboard every single day, and they won't be able to sustain it. You can't sprint a mile. You can't sprint a mile. It's not going to work that way. You can sprint 40 yards. Okay. But you can't sprint a mile. I apologize, Ebenezer Adams. Let me check. I missed a super chat. Okay, let me go ahead. You just can't sprint a mile. You can't go ahead and always. Ebenezer Adams. History will record this day as the day the Beach Friends meme was born. Thank you. Ebenezer Adams, thank you. Judge Kavanaugh is set to appear. And, this doesn't hurt Republicans. This doesn't hurt Republicans at all for the midterms. This is also not anything. I mean, Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill, this is completely different. And I look at that in a different manner as well. I mean, they're not going to, the vote is going to happen tomorrow. So let's see. Do they have the votes even without Jeff Flake? I think they do. Jeff Flake is such a fool. He's such a fool. It's unbelievable. Okay, just if you are even somewhat in the public eye, I've received death threats, okay? Nobody knows who I am. People know, like, if you're really, really into politics, you might know who I am. The amazing people watching me, and I love you, like, I have a lot of loyal people who watch me and know who I am. Yeah, and I'm very proud of that. But I'm not a national figure, and I got death threats, okay? That's why I had to go to the LAPD and actually file a police report. I actually filed a police report on a Twitter account that threatened me. So, and I actually just filed a report using the Twitter account. So they're like, oh, well, this person's getting death threats. Everyone gets death threats. If you have somewhat of an audience, you do. So that's like, I don't want to hear that. And like everyone, like Twitter now wants to go ahead and ban, abusive content. All they do on the left is abuse. They're the biggest bullies. They attack, they insult, they demean. That's all they do. And they've done that for 3 years already, going on 4 years. Cat Girl, thank you. Kavanaugh's giving. I lost like 100 people on my live stream. Well, why would you be watching? Let's see. Hold on. Let's look at the Kavanaugh hearing. If you're here on this channel, I'm gonna try to give you the Kavanaugh hearing. Hold on. Oh, here.
It's become a national disgrace.
Wow.
The Constitution gives the Senate an important role in the confirmation process, but you have replaced advice and consent with search and destroy. Since my nomination in July, there's been a frenzy on the left to come up with something, anything, to block my confirmation. Shortly after I was nominated, the Democratic Senate leader said he would, quote, oppose me with everything he's got. A Democratic senator on this committee publicly referred to me as evil. Evil. Think about that word. And said that those who supported me were, quote, complicit in evil. Another Democratic senator on this committee said, quote, Judge Kavanaugh is your worst nightmare. A former head of the Democratic National Committee said, quote, Judge Kavanaugh will threaten the lives of millions of Americans for decades to come. I understand the passions of the moment, but I would say to those senators, your words have meaning. Millions of Americans listened carefully to you. Given comments like those, is it any surprise that people have been willing to do anything to make any physical threat against my family, to send any violent email to my wife, to make any kind of allegation against me and against my friends, to blow me up and take me down? You sowed the wind. For decades to come, I fear that the whole country will reap the whirlwind. The behavior of several of the Democratic members of this committee in my hearing a few weeks ago was an embarrassment. But at least it was just a good old-fashioned attempt at borking. Those efforts didn't work. When I did at least okay enough at the hearings that it looked like I might actually get confirmed, a new tactic was needed. Some of you were lying in wait and had it ready. This first allegation was held in secret for weeks by a Democratic member of this committee and by staff. It would be needed only if you couldn't take me out on the merits. When it was needed, this allegation was unleashed and publicly deployed over Dr. Ford's wishes.
Yeah, how'd it get leaked?
And then,
leaked,
as no doubt was expected, if not planned, came a long series of false last-minute smears designed to scare me and drive me out of the process before any hearing occurred. Crazy stuff. Gangs, illegitimate children, fights on boats in Rhode Island. All nonsense, reported breathlessly and often uncritically by the media. This has destroyed my family and my good name. A good name built up through decades of very hard work and public service at the highest levels of the American government. This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit.
It has.
Fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election.
It has.
Fear that has been unfairly stoked about my judicial record. Revenge on behalf of the Clintons. Millions of dollars in money from outside left-wing opposition groups.
Revenge on the behalf of Clintons.
This is a circus. The consequences will extend long past my nomination. The consequences will be with us for decades. This grotesque and coordinated character assassination will dissuade competent and good people of all political persuasions from serving our country. And as we all know, in the United States political system of the early 2000s, what goes around comes around.
Oh, yeah.
I am an optimistic guy. I always try to be on the sunrise side of the mountain, to be optimistic about the day that is coming. But today, I have to say that I fear for the future. Last time I was here, I told this committee that a federal judge must be independent, not swayed by public or political pressure. I said I was such a judge, and I am. I will not be intimidated into withdrawing from this process. You've tried hard. You've given it your all. No one can question your effort. But your coordinated and well-funded effort to destroy my good name and destroy my family will not drive me out. The vile threats of violence against my family will not drive me out. You may defeat me in the final vote, but you'll never get me to quit. Never.
Yeah.
I'm here today to tell the truth. I've never sexually assaulted anyone. Not in high school, not in college, not ever. Sexual assault is horrific. One of my closest friends to this day is a woman who was sexually abused and who in the 1990s, when we were in our 30s, confided in me about the abuse and sought my advice. I was one of the only people she consulted. Allegations of sexual assault must always be taken seriously, always. Those who make allegations always deserve to be heard. At the same time, the person who is the subject of the allegations also deserves to be heard. Due process is a foundation of the American rule of law. Due process means listening to both sides.
Yep. He's giving it
As
good.
I told you in my hearing 3 weeks ago, I'm the only child of Martha and Ed Kavanaugh. They're here today. When I was 10, my mom went to law school, and as a lawyer, she worked hard and overcame barriers, including the workplace sexual harassment that so many women faced at the time and still face today. She became a trailblazer, one of Maryland's earliest women prosecutors and trial judges. She and my dad taught me the importance of equality and respect for all people, and she inspired me to be a lawyer and a judge. Last time I was here, I told you that when my mom was a prosecutor and I was in high school, she used to practice her closing arguments at the dining room table on my dad and me. As I told you, her trademark line was, use your common sense. What rings true? What rings false?
Mm-hmm.
Her trademark line is a good reminder as we sit here today, some 36 years after the alleged event occurred, when there is no corroboration, and indeed it is refuted by the people allegedly there.
37 years.
After I have been in the public arena for 26 years without even a hint, a whiff of an allegation like this. And when my nomination to the Supreme Court was just about to be voted on at a time when I'm called evil by a Democratic member of this committee, while Democratic opponents of my nomination say people will die if I am confirmed. This onslaught of last-minute allegations does not ring true. I'm not questioning that Dr. Ford may have been sexually assaulted by some person in some place at some time. But I have never done this to her or to anyone. That's not who I am. It is not who I was. I am innocent of this charge. I intend no ill will to Dr. Ford and her family. The other night, Ashley and my daughter Liza said their prayers, and little Liza, all of 10 years old, said to Ashley, we should pray for the woman. It's a lot of wisdom from a 10-year-old.
Democrats are done.
We mean no ill will. First, let's start with my career. For the last 26 years, since 1992, I've served in many high-profile and sensitive government positions for which the FBI has investigated my background 6 separate times. 6 separate FBI background investigations over 26 years, all of them after the event alleged here. I have been in the public arena and under extreme public scrutiny for decades. In 1992, I worked for the Office of Solicitor General in the Department of Justice. In 1993, I clerked on the Supreme Court for Justice Anthony Kennedy. I spent 4 years in the Independent Counsel's Office during the 1990s. That office was the subject of enormous scrutiny from the media and the public. During 1998, the year of the impeachment of President Clinton, our office generally, and I personally, were in the middle of an intense national media and political spotlight. I and other leading members of Ken Starr's office where opposition researched from head to toe, from birth through the present day. Recall the people who were exposed that year of 1998 as having engaged in some sexual wrongdoing or indiscretions in their past. One person on the left even paid $1 million for people to report evidence of sexual wrongdoing, and it worked. Exposed some prominent people. Nothing about me. From 2001 to 2006, I worked for President George W. Bush in the White House. As staff secretary, I was by President Bush's side for 3 years and was entrusted with the nation's most sensitive secrets. I traveled on Air Force One all over the country and the world with President Bush. I went everywhere with him, from Texas to Pakistan, from Alaska to Australia, from Buckingham Palace to the Vatican. 3 years in the West Wing, 5.5 years in the White House. I was then nominated to be a judge on the D.C. Circuit. I was thoroughly vetted by the White House, the FBI, the American Bar Association, and this committee.
Wow.
I sat before this committee for 2 thorough confirmation hearings in 2004 and 2006. For the past 12 years leading up to my nomination for this job, I've served in a very public arena as a federal judge on what is often referred to as the second most important court in the country. I've handled some of the most significant and sensitive cases affecting the lives and liberties of the American people. I have been a good judge. And for this nomination, another FBI background investigation, another American Bar Association investigation, 31 hours of hearings, 65 senator meetings, 1,200 written questions, more than all previous Supreme Court nominees combined.
Wow.
Throughout that entire time, throughout my 53 years and 7 months on this earth until last week, no one ever accused me of any kind of sexual misconduct. No one, ever. A lifetime of public service and a lifetime of high-profile public service at the highest levels of American government, and never a hint of anything of this kind.
Wow.
And that's because nothing of this kind ever happened.
He's giving it good.
Let's turn to specifics. I categorically and unequivocally deny the allegation against me by Dr. Ford. I never had any sexual or physical encounter of any kind with Dr. Ford. I never attended a gathering like the one Dr. Ford describes in her allegation. I've never sexually assaulted Dr. Ford or anyone. Again, I am not questioning that Dr. Ford may have been sexually assaulted by some person in some place at some time. But I've never done that to her or to anyone. Dr. Ford's allegation stems from a party that she alleges occurred during the summer of 1982, 36 years ago. I was 17 years old between my junior and senior years of high school at Georgetown Prep, a rigorous all-boys Catholic Jesuit high school in Rockville, Maryland. When my friends and I spent time together at parties on weekends, it was usually with friends from nearby Catholic all-girls high schools: Stone Ridge, Holy Child, Visitation, Immaculata, Holy Cross. Dr. Ford did not attend one of those schools. She attended an independent private school named Holton Arms, and she was a year behind me. She and I did not travel in the same social circles. It is possible that we met at some point, at some events, although I do not recall that. To repeat, all of the people identified by Dr. Ford as being present at the party have said they do not remember any such party ever happening. Importantly, her friend, Ms. Kaiser, has not only denied knowledge of the party. Ms. Kaiser said under penalty of felony, she does not know me. Does not recall ever being at a party with me ever. And my two male friends who were allegedly there, who knew me well, have told this committee under penalty of felony that they do not recall any such party and that I never did or would do anything like this.
Penalty of felony.
Dr. Ford's allegation is not merely uncorroborated. It is refuted by the very people she says were there, including by a longtime friend of hers. Refuted.
Refuted. Look it up, Democrats.
Third, Dr. Ford has said that this event occurred at a house near Columbia Country Club, which is at the corner of Connecticut Avenue and East-West Highway in Chevy Chase, Maryland. In her letter to Senator Feinstein, she said that there were 4 other people at the house, but none of those people nor I lived near Columbia Country Club. As of the summer of 1982, Dr. Ford was 15 and could not drive yet. She did not live near Columbia Country Club. She says confidently that she had 1 beer at the party, but she does not say how she got to the house in question or how she got home or whose house it was. Fourth, I've submitted to this committee detailed calendars recording my activities in the summer of 1982. Why did I keep calendars? My dad started keeping detailed calendars of his life in 1978.
Got even clipped.
So is both a calendar and a diary.
Oh, man.
It's a very organized guy, to put it mildly.
Wow. His dad had that day. Holy.
Christmas time, we sit around and he regales us with old stories. Old milestones, old weddings, old events from his calendars.
Wow.
In ninth grade, in 1980, I started keeping calendars of my own. For me also, it's both a calendar and a diary. I've kept such diaries for the last 38 years. Mine are not as good as my dad's in some years. And when I was a kid, the calendars are about what you would expect from a kid. Some goofy parts, some embarrassing parts. But I did have the summer of 1982 documented pretty well. The event described by Dr. Ford presumably happened on a weekend, because I believe everyone worked and had jobs in the summers. And in any event, a drunken early evening event of the kind she describes presumably happened on a weekend. If it was a weekend, my calendars show that I was out of town almost every weekend night before football training camp started in late August. The only weekend nights that I was in D.C. were Friday, June 4, when I was with my dad at a pro golf tournament. And had my high school achievement test at 8:30 the next morning.
Game over.
I also was in D.C. on Saturday night, August 7th. But I was at a small gathering at Becky's house in Rockville with Matt, Denise, Lori, and Jenny. Their names are all listed on my calendar. I won't use their last names here. And then on the weekend of August 20 to 22nd, I was staying at the Garrett's with Pat and Chris as we did final preparations for football training camp that began on Sunday the 22nd. As the calendars confirm, that weekend before a brutal football training camp schedule was no time for parties. So let me emphasize this point. If the party described by Dr. Ford happened in the summer of 1982 on a weekend night, my calendar shows all but definitively that I was not there. During the weekdays in the summer of 1982, as you can see, I was out of town for 2 weeks of the summer for a trip to the beach with friends and at the legendary 5-star basketball camp in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. When I was in town, I spent much of my time working out, lifting weights, playing basketball, or hanging out and having some beers with friends as we talked about life and football and school and girls. Some have noticed that I didn't have church on Sundays on my calendars. I also didn't list brushing my teeth. And for me, going to church on Sundays was like brushing my teeth. Automatic. Still is.
Democrats are
In
done.
the summer of 1981, I had worked construction. In the summer of 1982, my job was cutting lawns. I had my own business of sorts. You see some specifics about the lawn cutting listed on the August calendar page. When I had to time the last lawn cuttings of the summer of various lawns before football training camp. I played in a lot of summer league basketball games for the Georgetown prep team at night at Blair High School in Silver Spring. Many nights I worked out with other guys at Tobin's house. He was the great quarterback on our football team, and his dad ran workouts or lifted weights at Georgetown Prep in preparation for the football season. I attended and watched many sporting events, as is my habit to this day. The calendars show a few weekday gatherings at friends' houses after a workout or just to meet up and have some beers. But none of those gatherings included the group of people that Dr. Ford has identified. And as my calendars show, I was very precise about listing who was there. Very precise. And keep in mind, my calendars also were diaries of sorts, forward-looking and backward-looking, just like my dad's. You can see, for example, that I crossed out missed workouts and the canceled doctor's appointments. And then I listed the precise people who had shown up for certain events. The calendars are obviously not dispositive on their own, but they are another piece of evidence in the mix for you to consider. Fifth, Dr. Ford's allegation is radically inconsistent with my record and my character from my youth to the present day. As students at an all-boys Catholic Jesuit school, many of us became friends and remain friends to this day with students at local Catholic all-girls schools. One feature of my life that has remained true to the present day is that I've always had a lot of close female friends. I'm not talking about girlfriends. I'm talking about friends who are women. That started in high school. Maybe it was because I'm an only child and had no sisters. But anyway, we had no social media or text or email, and we talked on the phone. I remember talking almost every night, it seemed, to my friends Amy or Julie. Or Kristen, or Karen, or Suzanne, or Maura, or Megan, or Nikki. The list goes on. Friends for a lifetime, built on a foundation of talking through school and life, starting at age 14. Several of those great women are in the seats right behind me today. My friends and I sometimes got together and had parties on weekends. The drinking age was 18 in Maryland for most of my time in high school and was 18 in DC for all of my time in high school. I drank beer with my friends. Almost everyone did. Sometimes I had too many beers. Sometimes others did. I liked beer. I still like beer. But I did not drink beer to the point of blacking out, and I never sexually assaulted anyone. There is a bright line between drinking beer, which I gladly do, and which I fully embrace, and sexually assaulting someone, which is a violent crime. If every American who drinks beer, or every American who drank beer in high school, is suddenly presumed guilty of sexual assault, we'll be in an ugly new place in this country. I never committed sexual assault. As high school students, we sometimes did goofy or stupid things. I doubt we are alone in looking back at high school and cringing at some things. For one thing, our yearbook was a disaster. I think some editors and students wanted the yearbook to be some combination of Animal House, Caddyshack, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which were all recent movies at that time. Many of us went along in the yearbook to the point of absurdity. This past week, my friends and I have cringed. When we read about it and talked to each other.
You'll pay at midterms, Democrats, dearly. It's no problem. Be here to party November 6th.
One thing in particular we're sad about. One of our good female friends who we would admire and went to dances with had her name used on the yearbook page with the term alumnus. That yearbook reference was clumsily intended to show affection and that she was one of us. But in this circus, the media's interpret the term as related to sex. It was not related to sex. As the woman herself noted to the media on the record, she and I never had any sexual interaction of it at all. So sorry to her for that yearbook reference. This may sound a bit trivial, given all that we're here for, but one thing I want to try to make sure of in the future is my friendship with her. She was and is a great person. As to sex, this is not a topic I ever imagined would come up at a judicial confirmation hearing, but I want to give you a full picture of who I was. I never had sexual intercourse or anything close to it during high school or for many years after that. In some crowds, I was probably a little outwardly shy about my inexperience. Tried to hide that. At the same time, I was also inwardly proud of it. For me and the girls who I was friends with, that lack of major or rampant sexual activity in high school was a matter of faith and respect and caution. The committee has a letter from 65 women who knew me in high school.
65 women. I want Slate to write about the 65 women.
They said that I always treated them with dignity and respect. That letter came together in one night.
Wow.
35 years after graduation, while a sexual assault allegation was pending against me in a very fraught and public situation where they knew They knew they'd be vilified if they defended me. Think about that. They put themselves on the line for me. Those are some awesome women. I love all of them.
Oh, my goodness.
You also have a letter from women who knew me in college. Most were varsity athletes. And they described that I treated them as friends and equals and supported them in their sports at a time when women's sports was emerging in the wake of Title IX. I thank all of them for all their texts and their emails and their support. One of those women friends from college, a self-described liberal and feminist, sent me a text last night that said, quote, "Deep breaths. You're a good man, a good man, a good man." A text yesterday from another of those women friends from college said, quote, "Brett, be strong. Pulling for you to my core." A third text yesterday from yet another of those women I'm friends with from college said, "I'm holding you in the light of God."
That doesn't mean anything to Democrats.
As I said in my opening statement the last time I was with you, cherish your friends, look out for your friends, lift up your friends, love your friends. I felt that love more over the last 2 weeks than I ever have in my life. I thank all my friends. I love all my friends. Throughout my life, I've devoted huge efforts to encouraging and promoting the careers of women. I will put my record up against anyone's, male or female. I am proud of the letter from 84 women. 84 women.
84?
Who worked with me at the Bush White House from 2001 to 2006.
What's 84 plus 62?
As, quote, "a man of the highest integrity." Read the op-ed from Sarah Day from Yarmouth, Maine.
It's almost 150 women.
She worked in Oval Office operations outside of President Bush's office. Here's what she recently wrote in centralmaine.com. And today she stands by her comments. Quote, "Brett was an advocate for young women like me. He encouraged me to take on more responsibility and to feel confident in my role. In fact, during the 2004 Republican National Convention, Brett gave me the opportunity to help with the preparation and review of the president's remarks, something I never would have had the chance to do if he had not included me. And he didn't just include me in the work. He made sure I was at Madison Square Garden to watch the president's speech instead of back at the hotel watching on TV."
You will pay at midterms.
End quote.
You will pay. No problem.
As a judge since 2006, I've had the privilege of hiring 4 recent law school graduates to serve as my law clerks each year. The law clerks for federal judges are the best and brightest graduates of American law schools. They work for 1-year terms for judges after law school, and then they move on in their careers. For judges, training these young lawyers is an important responsibility. The clerks will become the next generation of American lawyers and leaders, judges and senators. Just after I took the bench in 2006, there was a major New York Times story about the low numbers of women law clerks at the Supreme Court and federal appeals courts. I took notice and I took action. A majority of my 48 law clerks over the last 12 years have been women. In a letter to this committee, my women law clerks said I was one of the strongest advocates in the federal judiciary for women lawyers. And they wrote that the legal profession is fairer and more equal because of me. In my time on the bench, no federal judge, not a single one in the country, has sent more women law clerks to clerk on the Supreme Court than I have.
Wow. Wow.
Before this allegation arose 2 weeks ago, I was required to start making certain administrative preparations for my possible transfer to the Supreme Court, just in case I was confirmed. As part of that, I had to, in essence, contingently hire a first group of 4 law clerks who could be available to clerk at the Supreme Court for me on a moment's notice. I did so and contingently hired 4 law clerks. All 4 are women. If confirmed, I'll be the first justice in the history of the Supreme Court to have a group of all women law clerks. That is who I am. That is who I was. Over the past 12 years, I've taught constitutional law to hundreds of students, primarily at Harvard Law School, while I was hired by then Dean and now Justice Elena Kagan. One of my former women students, a Democrat, testified to this committee that I was an even-handed professor who treats people fairly and with respect. In a letter to this committee, my former students, male and female alike, wrote that I displayed a character that impressed us all. I love teaching law, but thanks to what some of you on this side of the committee have unleashed, I may never be able to teach again.
Wow. Wow.
For the past 7 years, I've coached my 2 daughters' basketball teams. You saw many of those girls when they came to my hearing for a couple of hours. You have a letter from the parents of the girls I coached that describe my dedication, commitment, and character. I coach because I know that a girl's confidence on the basketball court translates into confidence in other aspects of life.
It's true.
I love coaching more than anything I've ever done in my whole life. But thanks to what some of you on this side of the committee have unleashed, I may never be able to coach again.
Midterms. You get God is watching.
I've been a judge
No problem.
for 12 years. I have a long record of service to America and to the Constitution. I revere the Constitution. I am deeply grateful to President Trump for nominating me. He was so gracious to my family and me on the July night he announced my nomination at the White House. I thank him for his steadfast support. When I accepted the president's nomination, Ashley and I knew this process would be challenging. We never expected that it would devolve into this.
The Democrats.
Explaining this to our daughters has been about the worst experience
Clinton.
of our lives.
Thank her.
Ashley has been a rock. I thank God every day for Ashley and my family. We live in a country devoted to due process and the rule of law. That means taking allegations seriously. But if the mere allegation, the mere assertion of an allegation, a refuted allegation from 36 years ago, is enough to destroy a person's life and career, we will have abandoned the basic principles of fairness and due process that define our legal system and our country.
Keith Ellison.
I ask you to judge me by the standard that you would want applied to your father, your husband, your brother, or your son. My family and I intend no ill will toward Dr. Ford or her family. But I swear today, under oath, before the Senate and the nation, before my family and God, I am innocent of this charge.
Thank you, Judge Kavanaugh.
Wow.
Questions.
Wow. Well, Democrats lost again, and they lost again, and that's all they do is lose. That's all they can do. That's what happens when you're a bunch of losers. You can't accuse a human being based on gossip and hearsay, and you certainly can't state something took place without any evidence, whether or not it took place. Dr. Ford could be telling the truth. The proceedings and what Democrats have done is state that her viewpoint or her recollection is evidence. That is not evidence. Kavanaugh fought back like Clarence Thomas fought back. And when you listen to Clarence Thomas, you gain a newfound appreciation. I always thought Clarence Thomas was the bad person. I don't anymore. After listening to his rebuttal, and right now listening to Kavanaugh, it's game over. Kavanaugh brings up God, but Democrats are, essentially godless. They don't care about any. They have no, not that you have to care about God, and not that it's not bad to be an atheist or agnostic, but they have no sense or appreciation at all of any kind of karma, or they don't care. They're like a wounded creature trying to just destroy and hurt and maim. And what happens is they end up destroying themselves. They're going to get it in midterms. This is going to hurt them. But this is not about midterms. This is about destroying a good man or good human being. A woman could be destroyed in this manner as well. There are people who manipulate. There are people who manipulate for sexual and egotistical, narcissistic gain. And those people do commit crimes. And then there are people like Kavanaugh who are attacked unjustly. There are people who have suffered in this country, women who have suffered immeasurably at the hands of real criminals, real manipulators, real evil predators like Bill Clinton. The Democratic Party is a party that utilizes morality as it spews the most immoral, unethical, disgusting, evil propaganda. It's vile. It speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. Give me your thoughts below. Kavanaugh hit back hard. And Kavanaugh is not a white man. He could be a black man. He could be an Asian man. He could be a Latino man. He could be a Jewish guy. It could be anyone. Kavanaugh could be a woman, could be a black woman, could be a Latina, could be an Asian woman, could be anyone. Kavanaugh is not just some white guy like the identity politics, primarily white liberals talk about. Kavanaugh is essentially speaks for all human beings. And I can't help but think of the Dreyfus trial, which reminds me of the Dreyfus trial in France, over 100 years ago, where a Jewish military officer was wrongfully accused, and he was innocent. But anyway, give me your thoughts below. You have barked up the wrong tree as usual, idiot morons, and you will pay dearly. November 6, 2018. As usual, there's no telling where you would descend tomorrow. There's no telling. We'll see. Very likely you can descend lower. All bets are off. We'll see. We'll see what happens. God bless y'all. Thank you so much to everyone, to my super chat. Thank you so much for watching this long. And everyone, thank you. Tamara, thank you. And Rygirl Urso, thank you. Everyone, thank you. God bless. And when I say that about Democrats and God, it's not the belief in God. You don't have to believe in God. That's totally fine. And I love Christopher Hitchens. My thing is that there is no ethical, moral standard. There is no fear of wrongdoing with Democrats. There is no sense of something greater, whether it's just reason, logic, or God, or whatever. Democrats are like they're unbound by any common sense, and they'll do anything for power, which is why their power is dwindling. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe. Thank you so much. God bless. I will see you very soon. I'll do an upload very soon. Thank you.